So you wrote your paper and it's time to select the journal where you want to submit it, but you somehow struggle to select which one will be the best and most appropriate for your research. Well, I do get that. I've been there and I struggled as well. Let me show you what are the key mistakes that people make when selecting journals. Well, selecting a journal is an important step in publication process, mostly because that decision will largely influence whether your paper will be accepted or rejected faster, right? Because if you select appropriate journal for your paper, it is more likely that it will be accepted, of course, after several rounds of review. Well, selecting a journal is not an easy process at first, mostly because if you don't have experience with publishing, you don't know whether your work is good enough, you don't know whether the reviewers will like your paper, and you don't know which one to select. Well, selection, as I said, do matter, because if you select a journal that is too good for your paper, not diminishing the value of your paper, but sometimes we have to be realistic and we have to manage our expectations. So you do have to develop that mindset that if your paper is good enough to be published in the good paper, then go ahead. Submit to top 1%, submit to top 5%, and don't worry, if it's rejected, nothing bad happens, right? Word doesn't end there, and you still have a chance to submit it somewhere else. The story would be different if we had just one chance to submit our papers. But remember, rejection is just a feedback. You often get some additional feedback from the editors or from the reviewers that you can use to improve your work and then submit somewhere else. But why do researchers struggle when selecting a journal? Well, there are a couple of things and a couple of mistakes many people make, and that results in either desk rejection or then rejection by reviewers. So let me tell you the three main reasons why journals are being rejected. Papers are being rejected, mostly because of the selection of the paper was not right. So the mistake number one is there is a lack of alignment between the paper and the journal's scope. It seems trivial, right? But you do have to verify whether the journal's scope is aligned with your paper, mostly because, well, the journals evolve over time. So I've seen that myself, and I committed that mistake myself. So let me tell you why it matters. So say I did some time ago, I did publish in a specific journal. It was Applied Energy. So that was a couple of years ago, and at that time they published almost all work related to my research field. They did publish quite a lot of papers in that area, and that was within their scope, right? So I found it relatively easy to publish there. But as the journal evolved, as the journal changed its direction a little bit, they started to become more. It started to become more difficult to actually publish there because my research kind of diverged from where the journal was heading, and I haven't checked whether my journal paper and the journal scope is actually aligned, and that's what actually caused a couple of rejections from my end. When I finally checked what happened and why my papers were rejected, I realized that the journal changed the direction slightly, and as a result, I would need to kind of tailor my paper in a little bit different way so that it aligns with the journal scope. So that was the mistake number one that I made, but also many other people made. The mistake number two is novelty is not sufficient for a selected journal. So that is something that you need to learn and you need to get experienced. So of course, each paper to be published, it needs to present a novelty. It needs to present it needs to contribute towards science and towards our knowledge, right? So that's given. You need to have novelty. You need to have original research to be published. But the level of novelty will be different in each journal and in each paper. And then journals in Q1, so that's top 25% of journals, will require much bigger, much greater novelty, which has more potential for impact than, for example, journals from Q3 and Q4. So you need to be able to assess the novelty of your work. And it's not easy. It's not easy because we are attached to our work, right? So you spend weeks, months, sometimes even years developing your research, planning your experiment, and then running your experiment and analysis. And then you basically wrote your paper, so you expect it to be the best paper ever. But you do need to benchmark that paper against the current state of the art. You do need to benchmark that paper against what the journal is actually publishing, so that you have a feeling about, is my paper good enough for that journal, or do I need to consider a journal with slightly lower impact factor? Of course, impact factors are vanity metrics, so it's not really a great measure of the quality of the journal, but somehow we still use them, so they give some sort of indication of how well the journal performs. So basically, you have to make sure that your novelty is sufficient to the journal, and you have to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with others. And if you struggle to do it, do ask your supervisor or your colleagues to review your paper before you actually submit it to a journal, so that you have the confidence that your paper will not be rejected by the editors outright. Another mistake, so the third mistake people make when selecting a journal, they basically don't tailor the manuscript to the selected journal. That is so obvious, but many people don't read submission guidelines. So that means the formatting, references, length of the journal, of the manuscript, number of figures, length of the abstract, title structure, abstract structure, paper structure. All of that is super important, because each publisher, each journal might have different requirements for their reasons. That could be space reasons, that could be branding reasons, and so on. So you do need to check before you submit what structure that your manuscript actually needs to have, so that you avoid the rejection because of such as simple things. Okay, because your idea and your novelty might be extraordinary, your research might be extraordinary, but then if your manuscript is formatted poorly, if it doesn't align with the journal, it might be the case that, well, the editor will ask you to correct that and resubmit again, or they will reject your work outright. Okay, so this is the three main reasons why selecting a journal matters, and the three main mistakes people make when selecting a journal. So how do you avoid those mistakes? You could basically, I hope you could draw some similarities there in terms of the mistakes that I mentioned, but basically you need to be aware of the journal requirements. You need to be aware of how good your work is, and you need to get some experience and get some deliver some kind of a fifth sense or sixth sense about whether your novelty is good enough or not. And then you do need to make sure that you read all the documents that are provided by the journals, mostly because they might change their requirements, they might change their direction, and so on. So to sum up, if you enjoyed this, if you find this useful, please do like, comment, and share this video with your colleagues and your friends, so that they can also benefit from it. And if you need any support in terms of paper writing, your thesis writing, and research in principle, feel free to contact us and me because I'm here to help.